Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to have Josef Schinwald as my guest. And let me tell you a little bit about Josef. From managing a local newspaper chapter in Honduras to ascending to the role of associate publisher and director in Buenos Aires, Josef's career has been anything but ordinary, juggling an international MBA with appearances on TV shows, university lectures, and stint under the guidance of the U.S. Ambassador Philip V. Sanchez. He thrived in a dynamic environment, leading a team of over 100 individuals. His experiences not only enriched his life, but also paved the way for a revelation to true passion as he found public relations and the power of the interview. In today's digital landscape, podcasting has emerged as the new frontier of public relations, a dynamic platform combining the reach of the news sources and the intimacy of late night TV, yet with an explosion of podcasts in every conceivable niche. The real challenge is standing out and finding your voice amidst the cacophony of all that is out there. This led Josef to start at guestexpertsonair.com. Guestexpertsonair.com is where they don't just book you on podcast. They strategically position you to showcase your expertise, ensuring that your message resonates with the right audience. So today we're going to talk about the power of the podcast to accelerate your brand. Please join me in welcoming Josef Schinwald. Hey, Josef.
Hello, Vicki, and thank you so much. And it's a real privilege to be on your world-class podcast.
Awesome. You know, I started podcasting as a sort of a, you're retired now, what are you going to do with your life kind of thing. And I just did during the COVID time, during the pandemic, I started to interview people that were shut in, just to have a conversation with them, to make them feel not so alone. And I enjoyed hearing their stories and finding out so much about them. And I thought, you know, this would be great to do. And then as I was in business and I was doing networking with others, I thought, wow, if I could only connect you with that person or that person with you, it would be great. How could I do this? And podcasting seemed the natural way to network in an environment that you can really get to know people. So I was very excited to see what you do and how you have been helping others in the same way. So we start with an easy question. As they hear your voice, some of it goes away, or it gives it away. Tell them where all you have lived, not just where you're living now, but how many countries have you lived in?
Oh my gosh, this will take a long time. No, I was in many countries. I started out like India, Korea, and always to talk about a few years. I was working for a newspaper, not as a journalist, but in the beginning in other departments, but then I became a manager. But I started in New York 5 years. Then I went to Honduras. Then I went to Argentina. Then I went back to Central America, a little bit in Canada. And now I'm in Spain. So it's not too long, but that's the journey.
So crazy. But each country you attend or you live in, I think it gives you that exposure to their culture, and that makes you more able to relate to a wide global audience. And so I think that's a great asset that you have.
Yes, definitely. I mean, just when you are like 25 years in Latin America, your Spanish becomes like very unconscious, and you suddenly, it after a few years. You just can really just be with the people there, the local people, and just completely understand everything. You don't have to think and translate anymore, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Particularly when I was on television, because for your audience, because what your podcast is about, is about leadership, impact, and also public speaking, fear of public speaking, and all this. Yes, there was a huge fear in public speaking in the beginning. I remember I was on the Fortress in Salzburg as a tourist guide when I was studying, and I had right away 100 people in front of me with this huge key, because you have to open the doors, in the fortress with a huge key. And I remember I completely lost my voice. And the same thing with the television in the beginning. The first time I have those 3 cameras on me, and I sit in this chair. I remember I felt so uncomfortable. I saw myself from above, and then I think I completely disappeared for a while for myself. But then it becomes really fun. And the same as with podcast guesting or hosting a podcast, you just have to do it. Look, I have this heavy accent from Austria, and you ask yourself, you get this self-doubt in the beginning. Can I actually be a host of a podcast? But it's all possible. You just do it, and then what do you think is the negative thing becomes the positive, the strength.
Yeah. And I think the message too there is that you didn't give up. You didn't shrink from that. You says, okay, I'm going to just do this and learn as you went and learn as you go. And there's same with my career. So many times I said yes to do something when I had no idea how I was going to get it done, but you just persevere, right?
Yes, and doing is important, because that's why we live. We live for growing, and if you just overcome sometimes those limitations you have, it will be a huge impact on your life, on yourself, because you're proud of you that you did it, and you're growing, and growth is the meaning of life. I mean, it's all about growth. If you don't grow anymore, then you go the other direction, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about podcasting. And really, again, how you can use it to accelerate your brand. I told you, I think this is the best way to network there is, because you have quality time. But what makes your business model for your business a little different than things that are out there today?
Yeah, I thought a lot about it in the beginning because I've started several businesses, and each one had a good lifetime. It was an e-commerce store for 10 years, and some still exist. But I have to say that when I found out my passion for interviews and helping people, experts, to get the message out, and just being able to wrap my head around high-level people, because I have been there. So it's not like, competitors, sometimes they're young people, like, they just go to university, and they are not yet so experienced. They're not like I'm a seasoned media expert. So for me, when I got into it and I got the passion for it to do this, actually, I knew I could really help people.
Yeah.
And I knew this is something very fulfilling. It's more fulfilling than looking, for instance, for new products in China to sell on Amazon or something like that, right? And that's also good for people. It's also nice. But I liked to be for a lifestyle business, which it is. I liked it to be really like human related. I wanted the humanness, the human-heartedness in there, and I wanted to know that I have a heart for this. And so what got me really into it was exactly that I could actually see how valuable I can become. So what makes me different from my competitors? I did the research, and what I found out analyzing most of my competitors, the good ones, is that there are many corporate phases. In other words, you get to a page where people ask, send me $2,000 and then we talk. In other words, like, will you get 30 podcasts from me? But you know what? You have to, for somebody who gets started, let's say you have to have a better entrance into this, because you might not have experience yet. You might be somebody who has been a long time out there and just looks for podcasts. They are just like the best of the best of the best, because he was disappointed with others. They always got them like average podcasts. But then there are many also, they really like a little bit of a coaching, so let's say give them a feedback after the first interview, just to be available. I mean, to be there for them. So they got this, they get the first bookings. And what I do is basically I give them a 3-interview experience package. And then I add another one for a limited time. So they get 4 interviews for quite little money. And then I help them, to get feedback on the first interview and what they can make better. Because really what we want to do is we don't want to bitch our business. We want to show who we are and why we are different. What is our unique value proposition? What is our unique value we bring to the table of discussion first of all? Nobody wants to listen to a podcast and hear something else. I mean, really, they want to hear something, learn something. They want a compelling story. They want to hear an expertise, a deep expertise, and a framework. And when they get interested in, and they want to really reach out to that expert, maybe visit the website, subscribe to the newsletter, go on their LinkedIn, or maybe a discovery call, which is all out there. And then that is really, that at the end, the podcast host will mention it. And he will say, how can the audience now continue learning from you, or whatever. And then the URL, the website is usually the thing, or a magnet, a lead magnet, which is, it can be an ebook or something like this. So to answer it in a quick way now, your question, really it is to know your differentiation and then to become more of who you are already. And that's very important to know this as any expert, because if not just my business, I know why I'm good at this. I know why I'm different, and I want to be more different. That means I want to be more me, myself. I'm transparent. I'm easily available. I'm enthusiastic and all this stuff, right? And I always start at the top. So I start at the top. Even for a beginner, I get the best podcast right away. Why not? I'm not starting on the bottom, because you can do that, but then you never know. I mean, it's always the same. I mean, you have to have a little bit of courage. When you get right away a great podcast, it's just like swimming, you just jump in, and someday you have to swim,
Yeah, that's right.
And it's better to do a real lake, not just swimming in the bathroom, in the bathtub.
And I love
So
that
that's my answer.
that you give the feedback. That's one of the things that I offer always after I have guests, because sometimes I get, this is their first podcast. And so I always, before we start, give them some tips to make sure that they're going to present themselves in the best way, the best light, best sound. And then after, we talk about how it went. And, that's to me important. I want them to feel comfortable to do more podcasts. So that kind of leads me to my next question. A lot of podcast hosts are looking for guests, and then they also want to become guests. So how do you help that person who wants to be a host and a guest be able to fill their roster of guests, but also don't forget that they have a voice and a story that needs to be told?
Yes, I'm really specializing in podcast guesting. So I help sometimes podcast hosts with my guests, of course, not sometimes all the time, but I also help them somewhat. What you just said, I do both actually. I also help them get on podcasts themselves, but that is very little. It's not a big part of me. If you get into really top level podcasts, as you know, like top ranked podcasts, there are lots of guests. They have their own podcast.
Yeah.
So I know this because I do the prospecting there. So I see like people, and I wonder sometimes, can I reach out to this person and propose my business? But many times I see they are podcast hosts. So as a podcast host, you can do the networking very naturally because, you know, obviously you still have to pitch yourself, or you get just networked. I mean, like I do this often, like with you now. I have a few podcasts in my mind now, and where I've been on marketing, number one marketer of the day or something like this. There are interesting podcasts, leadership. I have lots of leadership podcasts. And when I have a great relationship with somebody, and now I've been talking with you, then I can make just a little introduction. I think you should get to know each other, right? I was just on a podcast of you, and then the other person, and I think, and then have a wonderful day, both of you, and then they continue, or they don't. But the thing is, if you have to write a positioning and a pitch for an actual guest who doesn't have a podcast, that makes it complicated, more complicated. You have to have a real mind for that. I mean, you have to know something about how do you position, how do you get the best out of it. The topics, the bio. This is not a regular bio. Yeah. This is not regular topics. You have to have topics where I know, where I can imagine and think from my experience, this will land well with hosts. Yeah. Because this is unique and different. And then, like, I get, sometimes I get people, they are not well established at all. Like, they just wrote a book, they've never been on an interview and stuff like this, or they just changed their career and now they're doing something completely different. But I can clearly see it now, certain things like a pattern recognition. It's like in a long, some time ago, I had to really study this a long time, but now I can see, wow, yeah, that's it. That's how we position you. That's where those business leadership podcasts will take you. Yeah. Even though you don't have not one single episode interview yet. You see, these are the things, right? But then I have some people, they are like overly qualified. Like several books. I have one. Several books, on Wall Street, number one. And then I have musicians. One is like, she has 200 million followers. Wow. And so many millions of downloads for her music. But these ones, they are sometimes very humble, and they go on smaller podcasts also, as long as they are related. Yeah. And if you have somebody really like so many things in his bio, and he cannot really leave out anything, then this comes across sometimes as too much. Yeah. And people like podcast hosts, they don't have so much time either. Yeah. They might like that high-level expert, but they just don't want to take the time to go through this incredible bio and all the incredible accomplishments. They like somebody they can understand, and they are just interesting for the table of discussion. It's like very much like a cocktail party, So you listen to this, guys. This is not about me. They talk about babies and stuff like this. That is about marketing. Oh, that I listen in here, and then I go there, and then people look at you and you say, "Well, you know what? I thought about something. Probably nobody had talked about this yet, and you can make your contribution."
It's so funny. I've had some folks that I've interviewed, as you said, that we're not podcast guests often or host, but they were very well accomplished and authors and such. And I had to do a lot of research before I interviewed them so that I could make it relatable to my audience, to make them feel comfortable, because they weren't comfortable. Even though they were this accomplished person, they weren't comfortable in this environment. And that's, part of what I try to do for people, especially with authors. I mean, they have such great stories to tell if they're a bestseller, but they have to be able to tell it, and to be comfortable and natural in that and the telling of it. So
yes,
all
totally,
good things.
Totally correct. Yes.
So could you share some stories of how you've helped accelerate the brand for some of your clients?
Well, first of all, the brand is really, there are many profit patterns with brands, but the brand, to understand what a brand really is, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. Yeah. And when you have, and I go to specifics right away afterwards, but when you have like the opportunity to talk, like on a podcast tour, I'm not talking about one interview, that doesn't help anybody. Because some people think I'm just going to Joe Rogan's show and then I'm famous. Most people who approach this podcast guesting from an intelligent point of view, they know it's going to be 2, or 3 interviews per month, and it can go on for years and years and years because it's a marketing channel. So when you are understanding that you can actually reach millions of people, but this is over a period of time, that you can reach 20,000 people actually in a month if you get on the right podcast, then you're already a step ahead of everybody else. And so how do you build the brand? The brand there, you build it because you have an opportunity to talk 40, 45 minutes about your framework, about your expertise, about your compelling story. People will remember you. If they see a Facebook advertising, that has its purpose. Spontaneous impulse shopping sometimes. If you are number 1 on Google, that has its purpose. Search related. A bride needs wedding favors. Fast, 3 weeks from now is the wedding. She's going on Google. Right? But if you're on a podcast tour and you have a few things, like maybe a book, right? And you do it strategically. Let's say you have this long-term tour already, and you connect it with your webinars, you connect it with your retreats, whatever. So you make it strategically because you have to think about how you make money. Because otherwise you will space out. Otherwise you will talk about all kinds of things. And it's beautiful to talk about all kinds of things, but you cannot pitch either. That's the thing. It's the paradigm is to not pitch yourself, yet to talk like this that people want to buy from you.
That's exactly right. Like, oh, wait, I could use that. Wait,
exactly.
Who is he?
I have my credit card out already. No, but it's really that's the paradox. And so the branding happens over a period of time. And the branding has to do with you, how you position yourself. If people really know what you're all about after a while, like what am I about? What am I about? Well, obviously it's about, I said it already several times, podcast guesting. It's also about podcast bookings, high-end podcast bookings. So you have to weave it in your story. Even if I talk about Buenos Aires and about all kinds of other things, my yoga in India doesn't matter. People have to know what you're all about, and this is not so easy for certain people. I have clients, I've really a lot of clients, and they have clients. They wrote this incredible book, and they have this incredible website, and a series of books, and I'm sitting there when I meet them the first time, and I really wonder, what is she all about? You know what I mean? Sorry to say that, but it has to be easy, understandable, because even podcasting is 45 minutes and 40 minutes. In order to create your brand, that's marketing, and that's the frequency people can actually basically dial in what this person is all about, and not that I'm in awe. He's like a half god, but I don't know. When somebody asks me afterwards, what does he actually do? I have no idea. So branding is not a complicated thing. It's really using technology nowadays anyway, and just standing out from the crowd. That means you have to in order to stand out of the crowd, you have to, when you're a life coach, you have to understand there are 9 million life coaches or more actually, right? There are life coaches, so many life coaches. So how do you stand out? Don't even talk about that you're a life coach. Just say right away that you are, I don't know what to say now, but you are helping 45-year-old women to find get another chance in life or something. Make it specific and make it memorable, and that's the brand. Then the brand is what people remember about you and how they talk about you.
I always say I feel like I'm a connector. I connect people to help them overcome some of the struggles that are just keeping them stuck. And I think that's really what, I just take it always back to, what did I need when I started, and who was there to help me, and how did I have to work to find them? So I'm just trying to make that avenue a little bit easier. But I'd love for you, on your website, you talk about harnessing the true power of podcasting requires a deep dive into the intricate world of analytics, coupled with strategic approach to personal engagement. So let's spend a little time on that, because there's a few things in there that we can discuss that oftentimes people don't, as I interview them, they don't really talk about the analytics, but I think it's important for us to spend a little bit of time on that.
Well, it's, it's not nothing to be scared of. It's like when you are a professional speaker on podcasts, like you really use it for getting more profitability, getting more clients. You have to measure it. What you don't measure is not going to be done.
Yeah.
Peter Drucker, one of the most outstanding management guru, said that exactly. What is not measured is not getting done. So how do you measure all these things? They found out nowadays with the Harvard Business School, and I was teaching that at the university in Buenos Aires. They found out how to measure not just the finance, but also the customer perspective, the internal processes perspective, the human capital, organizational capital, intellectual capital perspective, and how this is related in the strategy map. So measurement is important. So you ask yourself, how can you measure this with the podcast? Everybody's lying. I mean, this whole industry is full of liars. I get millions of downloads. I see it. Cannot be. I see the indicators. Impossible. And you can nowadays for this kind of things, you really want to know things like the real stats. I use perplexity.ai, which is almost like a ChatGPT, but it's better. It's more focused. It's better than Google. It comes up with the documents, academic documents sometimes. Perplexity.ai. Google it, you find it. It's excellent. For anything, like I ask the question, because you get so much information about this. So if a podcast has, let's say, they have the global rank, the listen score, these are like indicators. The global rank is like when you have a global rank of 10%,
right,
or 5%, or 1%, and I have clients that only want 0.5%, and I get them for them. But how much audience in general, on average, does a 1% global rank podcast get?
Talking
That's
global,
the question, right? That's the question.
A pretty big number.
That's the question. Not so big. It's on average 5,000.
Really?
And there are lots of people that over-exaggerate this number, and they are 1%. So 5,000 is a lot. Are you in front of 5,000 people in a room? That's a lot.
That is.
That is a lot. And then it can have 10,000. I mean, that's average, right? It could have 3,000. 10% global rank, and you're already pretty high with 3%. A 10% global rank would have from 20 people to a few hundred people. Can't say it. It's a roll of dice. When it has no global rank whatsoever, you might just talk to the host. It's possible, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully he's asking interesting questions, or at least it's an interesting conversation. So this is the things, and then one thing is also very important that when we talk about statistics, and then we talk about measurement and all this more, but it's also important that the podcast industry has a 30% compound growth rate. So they talked, it's already $1 billion industry. Well, in 2030, it will be $130 billion industry. That's huge. So all these podcasters, they will actually earn money because there will be more advertisers. Why is it growing so much? Because it is a good channel, marketing channel. It's not the only one. You should do other things also, but don't lose out on it. Don't not do it. You have to do it when you have a business, particularly solopreneurs. But how do you do it now? Well, you want to make money with it, right? So you want to get more clients. You want to have all these other benefits, like branding. The best is really, if you're really serious about it, and you're going to podcast do it, it's what I do with my clients. You're creating one page on the website, which is only accessible for one podcast. Let's say, in your case, I could say, we use part of your podcast or your name, Vicki, is fine. We could say guest experts on air /Vicki for your audience. I didn't do it, but that's what for long-term clients do with me. So then that page comes up when the people, they can remember it easily, right? They have the website /Vicki. They know Vicki because they listen to you every week. Now they come to this landing page. It's a landing page per episode. That's what I suggest for measuring. I don't talk a lot about Google Analytics and all this stuff. You can do that also, but you know what? This is the easiest, because now everybody knows and comes from this show, who listens now comes to this page, then they see your logo from your picture, and then I say right away, welcome, and then your podcast name, listeners, right? And then you again, you're a little bit about you, so remember, people feel comfortable. That's what I listen to every week, right?
Yeah.
And then my name next to it, my picture next to it, and a little bit about me, so they get remembered what I actually do. And then I have freebies, but not stupid freebies. Like you can have an assessment. Are you a good would you be a good podcast guest? Right? Assessment. Or a free ebook. And I have a free ebook for everybody, and they can go not to /wiki, but at the end of the show, we tell them the URL. They get a beautiful, wonderful ebook from me, which is called The Fast Track Formula to High-End Podcasts.
Nice.
And you really learn how to do this yourself if you want to. Otherwise, you can always use somebody like me. And then you have a third thing. Let's say three offers, and nothing costs anything, but they get you deeper into your funnel. Once you have them in your funnel of ecosystem of profitability, then you can measure more. But ultimately, it's always important that you know where they came in first. And then to do the analytics, there's all kinds of, you can Google it, you can go to perplexity.ai, explain that. You have one question, you get one answer. It's fantastic. And backed up with all these websites about it, and even what I said, YouTube videos about it. That's what I really would suggest. Everybody, you get a question in your marketing, whatever, and you go to perplexity.ai.
So we'll make sure we put that in the show notes, okay?
You get the answer. It's kind of new, but it's very, very good. And so what else was a measurement? The measurement really is that. And if you have people coming, because you do it strategically, not just do it. When you have these shows, let's say in May, you have four shows in May. And in June, and they are not being published in May. So then you have these shows in June. And then you have these shows in, let's say before May, in April, 3 months. So there's it's a system, right? There's a leading factors and lagging factors. Yes. You have to know this, and you won't know it if you don't do it, if you have not experience with it. But when you know it, you can strategically take advantage of it. In other words, now you start, let's say you're launching your book, and you want a lot of sales in the first week, right?
Right.
So you have to start early enough, because you have to understand the leading and the lagging factors. Your agent will pitch you, or you will pitch yourself, and it's advisable to get pitched because it's more professional image. And because if you do it yourself, then obviously you have so much time in your hand, you don't have clients, and whatever. And so you mentioned this book launch already early enough, so when the book launch comes, these episodes will be published. That's the lagging indicators. Right. So you have a pitch, you get accepted, you have a schedule on your calendar. That's a leading indicators. You have to pitch, you have to do something proactively. Then you get the interview after the schedule, right? And then you have to wait 1 month, for good podcasts, 2 months. You get the interview. Now you have the interview, but it's not yet published. So you're talking about your book launch. Maybe you talk about your book launch 3 months later. So you have to look at this, or you have a retreat. Same thing. Good. You have a retreat, same thing. You have to start early. Even with webinars, you can do it. I mean, it's always good to know how long is it going to, actually to ask always the podcast host, I would like to talk about this for a certain time. How long will it more or less take until it's published? So now the podcast host usually takes always a month. So in general, you get it after a month published, but ask also right there before you do the interview, because when you know more or less when, then you can talk about your retreat, your webinar, whatever it is, or your book launch or something. That's important, but that is really the impact of this, because if you don't do it, then you just have a nice chat, which is also nice, but people, we do it all for a purpose,
Yeah. Whenever I interview folks that have a book coming out, and it's 2 months for me to get my stuff published out. And so I always ask them, well, when's your book coming out in our pre-talk before we get on?
Nice. Mm-hmm.
And so if they say, well, it's coming out in a month, I will accelerate their posting so
That's
that
nice.
it comes a week after their publishing, so that they get a second wave of activity about their book, past their launch.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that additional reminder of people does help. So I love that you're talking about the strategic thing, because I think some people don't think about that. And, my book's coming out tomorrow. Well, you're not, a lot of podcast hosts are not going to stop everything and post that
Exactly.
episode right there.
But people think that podcasting, these all different technologies have different natures.
Mm-hmm.
The nature of podcasting, you have to understand it like this, The nature is that you have this lagging and leading indicators, and you have to know when to do this, because the impact will be in a few months from now on.
Right.
And if you think you can do it like a week before, and then you have to know the book publishing also, all kinds of things have different leading and lag. It's systems thinking. It's like Peter Sanger, right? The fifth discipline. He made this book, and systems thinking. And it's the same thing with all kinds of promotional activities. You have something in the horizon. What do I do now so I have enough clients then? What is the best marketing?
Yeah. Well, this has been just really very helpful, very interesting. I hope the audience has been taking notes. But as you know, if you haven't, please quickly go run and get a paper and pencil, because I'm going to share the screen with the contact information for Josef. And you are definitely going to want to take advantage of some of those things that he just talked about. So for those of you that are just listening, the website is guestexpertsonair.com. Again, that's guestexpertsonair.com. For Facebook, you can just search his name and you will find his Facebook page. But if you're watching, you can just go ahead and click on that screen shot. The Instagram is, as is LinkedIn, his name, so Josef Schinwald. And again, Josef is spelled with an F, not a PH, if you're someone here that is used to spelling it the other way. Again, Josef Schinwald is what you would search for Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm going to turn it over to Josef to talk to you about his call to action. Again, just recapping some of the things you find on that website, and also about his free ebook. So Josef, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I would not recommend Facebook, because Facebook, it's a good page, but it was hacked a year ago, and you might end up on a hacked one, and you can write me and I never get an answer. But LinkedIn is very good, and the other things you can contact me very well. Best is the website. And when you are going to guestexpertsonair.com/podcast promo, the Austrian accent, I will spell it, PROMO, podcast promo. And it's in the show notes, so when you just listen to it, you can see it later. You get a real nice book, and that book will show you, if you want to do it yourself or really want to understand how to pitch yourself to high-end podcasts, so you get right away a few thousand people listening.
Awesome.
Then this is a great book. I explain exactly the methodology, how you identify them, how you get their emails, and how you actually structure the pitch, the email pitch, the positioning. And this is not complicated at all. I have only shortcuts in there and lots of resources, free resources, like Perplexity is in there, right? And
awesome.
ChatGPT and stuff like this. Yeah. So that would be nice. And also, I know if you come and you want to talk with me, I have definitely a free discovery call, and we can talk about all kinds of things without you having to make a commitment right away. But if you like to, it's still very easy also to just go in there, talk with me. And I have the first package is an experience package, which I have before somebody makes a huge commitment for 10 podcasts for $2,100. I have actually 3 interviews for $699, and you get extra bonus. So you get 4 high-end podcasts for $700. That's actually a great offer.
Very good. So, Joseph, it's been just wonderful chatting with you.
Yes.
We could talk podcasting for days, but
lots of
I
possibilities.
appreciate you giving of your time today. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.